Hello and welcome to episode 189 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is April 26th, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
A lot of companies are moving their SAP systems to the cloud. SAP on Azure, Rise with SAP on Azure, or Grow with SAP on Azure are things that are very often used by our customers. But what do you actually do with your printers? If you need to print shipping labels, invoices, product descriptions, you cannot put your printer in the cloud. You still have your printer sitting on-premise next to you. So how do we connect our SAP systems in the cloud with our printers on premises? Martin Pankraz and Devansh Jain join us today to talk about printing from SAP with Microsoft Universal Print. Welcome to our podcast. Like always, before we dive into the topic, can you please introduce yourself? And maybe, Martin, everyone knows you already. Maybe, Devansh, maybe we can start with you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? What do you do at Microsoft?
Sure. Thanks for having me and Martin here. Thanks, Holger. Thanks, Goran. So my name is Devansh, and I work as a software engineer on the SAP on Azure team. And I primarily contribute to the SAP deployment automation framework. And this is something, the printing from using Universal Print for SAP is something that we have recently started to build. And we are looking forward to, grow this solution into a more polished solution. And this is a platform that we are trying to leverage. So thank you so much for having us here.
Cool. Thank you, Devansh. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Martin.
Old kid on the block.
Yes.
The old kid on the block. Martin Pankraz. I'm part of Azure Core in product management. I work with SAP as our engineering partner. That's also why we got to engage with the SAP side on this, and with all the Microsoft product groups who interface with SAP workloads. So this is like the perfect match where both the product groups need to come together to build something like this. And so I needed a partner in crime. Devansh was the one who raised his hand. I can do some of the coding, so we teamed up to really release the community version of this. But there are like other options. But we are going to focus on the accelerator today. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's great to have you back on the show, Martin. I did already a small introduction to talk why this is necessary, or how we on a broader level address this. But can you maybe talk a little about the motivation? What do we do? What do we exactly do here?
Yeah, I have a small drawing, and then we'll be working off the blog post that we published for this. That can be then shared afterwards in the show notes. And then we look at the moving parts. But I'm going to show a sketch first, so that we can understand the playing field a bit. Okay, should be coming up now.
Perfect. Yes, we can see your presentation.
So the Microsoft Universal Print aims at really bringing printing to the cloud, as you said it. So you have the users involved that have some devices like they're used to today, where you just click on something and you said, I want to print this PowerPoint, I want to print this PDF, whatever it is. And then you have the physical devices, like you said, sitting next to you, that actually needs to do the physical printing part. And there we already have a number of vendors who are Universal Print compliant today that support this out of the box. Those are the ones listed here on the right. They are the Universal Print ready printers. So we have a long list on our docs who supports this, at what like thing you just bought, what version numbers, etc. And of course, there's the large inventory of legacy printers who don't support it out of the box because they're just too old. For these, we have connectors that you then need to deploy somewhere in your infrastructure to make them Universal Print ready.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool. So if I buy a new printer now, then I guess I just have to do some configuration on the printer, which then connects to Universal Print. But if I have an older printer, like I don't know, my old Epson or whatever, then I can use this agent, which bridges the communication to Universal Print.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, and this already shows us also one of the benefits, because if you have something that is universal print ready, so you get rid of lots of the maintenance around this. How to manage these fleets of printers, where they are, how to query them, all of the things that get around this, including the driver management. It's not needed anymore. To some extent, you still have it if you require the connector. Of course, you need to have compute somewhere. It needs to run somewhere. Yeah? And in the universal print ready case, you don't even have the print server anymore. Yeah?
Okay.
We have debated with some of the partners when we presented and talked about the solution, how many customers already have a good ratio of this and who is here, because you need to elevate a little bit, to really get rid of the print servers and all of these things.
Yeah.
And on the universal print side, since this runs on Azure, its primary means to integrate with it is the Microsoft Graph. So we have a standardized, highly scalable interface that powers all the global printing needs out there. When it comes with all the Entra ID, authentication, etc., all the good things there.
One question, Martin. Universal Print is an Azure cloud service, right? So you have Windows somewhere physically and printers somewhere physically. How is the connection between the clients of OS and printer to the universal print? Do you need to have some kind of VPN, or it's just you need an internet?
Well, with most of the cloud needs, internet outbound is somehow required.
Okay.
So however you get out of your network, is that through your proxies or firewalls, etc. So you need to have internet outbound to reach them.
Which OS will be there. So meaning there is no need for any specific VPN configuration or local network in order to have the connectivity between these dots, right?
Yes.
Excellent. So which means really flexible, very flexible.
Yes.
So
and
when you have,
go ahead,
so when you connect or when you add so the process starts really when you add a printer to the universal print. So you have a physical device connected to your laptop. Now you want to onboard that physical device to the universal print. So in the Azure portal, you can simply go when you do an add printer, that authentication is already set up, right? So the rightmost arrow that you see to the universal print ready printers, that is the authentication done through Azure portal. When it comes to the universal print connector, the connector would also want you to authenticate yourself before you can add any printer. So that those are the dots. That's how the dots gets connected.
Yeah. So far, so good. And in the next steps, we will make a distinction between what we call front-end printing, where you really have someone sitting in front of the laptop who has ad hoc needs to print something. But there's also the large-scale app-to-app printing part, what you called the shipping labels, or where you have like hundreds of print jobs, where not a person sitting there and clicking, but really where the apps are triggering the print jobs. That's what we call the backend printing on the SAP world. Okay, so just to summarize on the gains, you really manage all the printers, the whole fleet, including the ones that are legacy enabled through the connector in one single place. So you have really a cloud service then to manage your printers. And if you really make then the first steps, you also reduce the burden of the print servers. So you reduce infrastructure, no maintenance on them anymore, no driver management. All of these things then go away because you go into APIs with Azure and Universal Print.
Nice.
And also what people like about this, you get to see the print jobs there in the cloud. What's going where, peaks, when do they finish, any challenges with them. So that's a good set of things that people like about moving printing to the cloud. Okay. Just to finish up the front-end part, this really looks the same way as it would with any other printer on your side. This is a screenshot from a universal print device. Just yesterday, I also used our internal one in the Munich office. always nice to just use it. You don't notice. You go to the next printer, you flash your badge, and it gets you the document that you were looking to print. We've listed all the prerequisites. This works on for a certain level of client OSs. Easy configuration on what to do on the SAP GUI to make this work. So it's one of the shortest docs articles we've ever written, because everything just works all of the time.
And it works, which is nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's on the front end part, where people on the GUI, on the Fiori screen, they just use the Windows means to get this going. So on the backend printing part, I'd like to start with a note, because this is something we did together with SAP. They said we have customers reaching out to us, asking about Universal Print. How can we make this work? And one of the first things we talked about was coverage. Where does this work? S/4HANA public cloud, private cloud, on premises, what's the deal? And at that time, it was really only public cloud. But we then came to an agreement, and then this was made available to the private cloud with the next iteration, and through that also to the on-premises systems with S/4HANA 2022 and upwards. And from this node, you can really just go ahead and start installing. Set basis component 757 is the minimum at this point in time. And then you get to install what they call the print queues. This is a separate module, separate feature that you require to make the SAP backend printing work.
So this means I really need to install this SAP node in my SAP system.
Yes.
On-premise, in the on-premise version.
Yes. In public cloud, it's already available.
Okay.
You just go through the configuration.
Yep.
And we have another drawing on this one here, where you actually have then the extra component on the ERP. And in the public cloud world, they use integration scenarios. There, the number 466 is the magic number that you need to look up, which then enables the pull-based integration of this. So the print queue mechanism has an interface. In this case, it's an OData service, which allows you to actively check print queues and get the print jobs and print documents from there. This is the same interface, by the way, that SAP's Cloud Print Manager uses, so which then enables BTP services to do this. So completely standardized way of doing this. Okay. So the next thing. This is the blog post that we're also going to share. Devansh, do you want to talk about a bit on the architecture? Like I said, this is fully supported in all environments. Only requirements the 757, and we really worked together with SAP on this and deployed this in our landscape and have the first customers looking into this. Maybe you can share a bit about the interfacing there, Devansh.
Sure. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we have, let's say we have a NetWeaver 757 systems, and then Martin also talked about how the Universal Print Service works on Azure and how you can authenticate that using Azure portal or the connector, adding devices and managing those natively from Azure. So now the only job that we are here to do is basically connecting those dots, basically connecting the SAP print queues and the universal print devices. And to enable that connection between these two things, we have a quick small solution that helps you connect these devices. And we use Terraform to manage all the infrastructure within the solution, and it's a pretty lightweight kind of a service, I would say, that runs based on Azure functions and leverages the logic app as of today to authenticate to the universal print. So to begin with, we have two kind of major components within the service. One, we call it as control plane that you see on top, called the Azure storage account, that would store the the Terraform state, since we use Terraform to deploy the service that we talked about. So that control plane would essentially take care of managing all the Terraform. So you can use one single control plane to have multiple environments. So Martin, if you can go to the GitHub page.
I can.
And to the getting started document that has got basically the recommendation from our side on how to deploy this service. And so similar to staff, similar to the accelerated framework, we recommend having multiple service deployments for each environment, each SAP land environment. So for example, if there are a couple of environments, non-production and production, so we recommend having splitting that at the control plane level, and then having independent services running for different environments. What that helps us do is maintain a high level of security, because then we only peer or make a connection between the virtual networks of non-production is isolated from the production environment. Right?
And keep in mind, the Azure function can be deployed next to the SAP system. Yeah? So if this runs on Azure in a private VNet, you have all the interactions with the OData service to get the print jobs. They can be in the same network, or if it's Azure means, it's very simple. For on-premises, you require then means to deploy on-premises. So there could be Azure.
It's a good motivation to go to Azure, right?
That's one of them, yeah. But you could be in many places, and the accelerator and Universal Print, of course, supports wherever you are.
Yeah.
And I can talk about the other components that you see in the service. So Key Vault is essentially used to store all the SAP credentials. So when we connect to SAP, we would need some SAP properties. Those are quite basic properties that we would need. I will talk about them in a moment, but Key Vault is essentially used to store all those properties in the secrets. And then the storage account that you see there maintains the queue of items that are scheduled to be printed. Because as of now, the universal print, any physical device for that matter cannot print, say, 1,000 jobs in a minute. It will have its own kind of capacity to print a page in 1 second or 2 seconds. So based on that, the storage queue maintains a queue where we have all the incoming items from the SAP, and then we kind of manage them within that storage queue. So the way it really works is, the Azure Function app would continuously keep pinging the SAP print queues, try to get all the latest documents or the print items from the print queues, and then store it in the storage queue. And the other part of the Azure function also makes sure that we are continuously sending out the prints and keeping the printer busy all the time. So that is a pretty high level architecture of how things work. There's one last dot that we need to connect. And that is from the function app, how do we send out the prints to the universal print device, that to in an authenticated way. So for that, as of now, we leverage Logic App Custom Connector. So Custom Connector, essentially what it does is it asks you to authenticate yourself for the first time. Once you have done that, the custom connector can help you interact with the universal print service on a regular basis. And you don't have to do it manually every time. You don't have to authenticate every time. So this is how we connect all these four connections that you see here.
So Azure Entra ID, it's basically used everywhere for the authentication, right? Which extremely simplifies,
Yes. And when you authenticate, it would ask you that you grant permissions for reading the printers, sending out the printer jobs, and things like those. I will show that during the demo. So yeah.
And I see we need to rename this. It's Microsoft Entra ID, and In terms of authentication, this is also something where the product group is improving over time. So that's the current setup, but there are like even better authentication mechanisms being worked on. All right. Shall we then start looking at some of the moving parts?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want to take the screen share?
Sure. I will start sharing my screen now. Let me know once you see that. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's coming up. Yes, it is here.
Okay. So, so here's the Azure GitHub repo that we have. This is basically a starter pack to integrate the universal print solution with the existing SAP systems that you have. Here we have, talked about the front-end printing and the back-end printing, and we have a deployment guide. So there are few prerequisite steps that you need to meet before you can get started. And like I can divide those prerequisites into 3 parts. I mean, Azure, it's like basic things. You need to have an subscription ID and an Entra ID, and then universal prints. Like this is a Azure native service. So once you have got a physical device on your sitting next to you, and you have connected to that using your laptop or any kind of computer, you have 2 options. One is either the printer is already like universal print ready, or you need to have a Windows client. And you can follow the printer registration guide on the learn.microsoft, and that is how you can connect like a non-compatible printer to the universal print service.
And
Right.
with the typical M365 licenses, you get like a certain set of jobs for free that are already included, and then you can check what the like the steps are. So everyone can get started without cost at the beginning.
And all these jobs are at the tenant level, so it really wouldn't matter if you run out of your own jobs. You can still leverage the job count that other people on your organization have. Right. So and then we come to the SAP system prerequisites. So as Martin mentioned earlier, so minimum SAP basis release requirement is 757. And it also applies to S/4HANA 2022 and S/4HANA Cloud Public Cloud Edition. Right. And one of the main essential criteria to enable a pull-based printing or backend printing is to implement the SAP queues in the system, meaning all the programs, all the all the programs that are running in the SAP system would then start sending the jobs to this particular queue, and the service that you see here, the solution that we have, would keep reading that particular queue and then sending those prints to the universal print. So in order to enable backend printing through this solution, you need to have these 2 nodes that are applied to the SAP system. One of those nodes is basically enabling the SAP print queues, and then the second one is like that is part of the same document, but that essentially asks you to ensure that there is a certain set of prerequisites that are required even for adding the print queues. So those are the 2 things that need to be done.
By the way, we were talking about pull-based integration, right? SAP has also the push-based one. That's the scenario 467, the second magic number. And this one allows you not to wait for someone to collect stuff, but you can also send out. But it's only available of the latest S4 in public cloud. And since we wanted to cover a broader range, we chose to do the pull-based integration, where you need to go check on the SAP queue.
Right.
Cool.
So far, so good.
Yep.
Yep.
Let's see some stuff in action.
So one motivation also to go to the latest S4, right?
Well, but you need to go
Yes.
to public cloud.
Right, to the public, yes.
Yeah, but there were plans, I think, on enabling others, but we always have to check at what time.
Yeah, public cloud. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So as we talked a few moments ago, that this solution is based on this solution basically consists of two main components. One is the control plane, and another one is the workload zone. As we say it, the control plane essentially, it's you can think of it as an orchestrator, and what that does is it manages several different environments. It manages the code that runs on the several different environments. Since it's an open source solution, people are free to contribute. And if they make any changes to a certain environment, they want to test something to this solution within non-production before they really release it to production, they can leverage the same container registry and having different versions of code running within that container registry. Right. And then the storage account here really helps you manage the Terraform state of different
Yes. Yeah.
deployments. So this is a pretty high level overview of how things work. Now, to really get started on the deployment part, we recommend the customers to use Azure Cloud Shell. The number one reason for that is Azure Cloud Shell comes with a lot of prerequisites, like the Terraform is pre-installed, Ansible is pre-installed, AZ commandlet is completely installed on Cloud Shell. So we recommend getting started with the Azure Cloud Shell, and there's a tiny bit of script that the customers need to look at and then modify the parameters here to get started. So I will get started with one of the examples that I already have. So I have this same script copied over and created in the Azure Cloud Shell file editor. And I have my parameters set to the environments that I want as of like whatever I have to kind of set those parameters to. So control plane environment is essentially, what kind of code that I want to give to my control plane, and then workload environments can be, say, as we're talking, right? So it can be either be non-production, production, test, or QA, or say sandbox, things like those, right? So let's say we have a QA environment, since we are doing a quality test. Location is the location of where you want to deploy these Azure resources. Enter ID, tenant ID, subscription ID. One thing to note here is that now all these following resources have to be similar to the one that, where the SAP system is running. So the subscription ID has to be in the same.
Okay.
And talk about the virtual network. So since we are going to peer or connect the SAP SAP system to the Azure Function app, we want the customers to provide us with the same virtual network as SAP system, so that any communication that happens between the Azure Function app and the SAP system stays within that virtual network. We don't take anything out of that virtual network, right? So that's the virtual network ID, the resource ID. And then since we are going to deploy a subnet within this virtual network, we would expect the users to provide us with the an address prefix of whatever address space is available within the VNet, right? And then a few other housekeeping parameters, like do we want to enable monitoring on the function app that we deploy? Home drive is really like the home drive that you have, and then the container registry name is like any name that you want to give to the container registry. We ask for this particular registry because this name needs to be unique across subscription. So that is the reason why we ask the users to provide us with this.
Okay.
Right. And then so once we have this script, what we really want to do is just once we execute this, what this would do is this would deploy like a control plane within storage account and container registry, and an Azure function app, keyword, storage account, and the authentication means. As of now, the authentication means for us is the logic app. So all the resources related to logic app would get deployed.
Cool.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We need to keep in mind that we are just building the bare bones right now. We haven't set up any connection between the Universal Print, SAP, and the function app. Right? Mm-hmm. Those would be our next steps. But what this script essentially would do is just help us get started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that surely simplify the onboarding work, because if you would need to do it manually, it will take you much more time. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. This is just a wrapper script that we have built around to ease the use of this solution. This script is essentially just helping you get started. Right. So once I have this script, I would just run this, and then it's as of now, these resources would be deployed using a service principal. But we plan to also integrate other authentication means like MSI and MSI essentially. So I would provide a control plane environment name, or let's say this one. So it would basically ask me to create do we want to create a new application registration, or do we want to use an existing one? So and then once I authenticate myself to so I'm in like a different tenant here.
Now we watch Enter ID in action.
Yeah, yes. Which is always good. Multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once this is authenticated, now is when all the resources that we just talked about in this architecture diagram would start getting deployed, beginning with the storage account and the container registry, and then followed by the Azure function app, the keyword, storage account. Now you must be wondering what really happens within the container registry, right? So whatever code we have within this repo, that basically is kind of a connector between the SAP system and the Universal Print, sits in this backend printing folder that you see here, and that is what gets built into a Docker image onto that function app, and that Docker image really sits in the Azure Container Registry. Right. So if you see here, container registry, I'll show that to you once this deployment has begun. So now you see this would take a while. And I do have some infrastructure that is already set up. So I'll give you a kind of a walkthrough on that. So since we have provided the control plane environment as this. So this is the control plane resource group. Now you see the container registry here and the storage account. In the container registry, you would see that we have different repositories that the users can maintain. And this is the background printing that repository that we cloned and like created the image of, and we have the latest tech. So you remember I was talking about having several different repository, like several different versions running in different environments. So this is where you can have different tags, say like a non-prod tag, and then run it against the non-prod environment.
Yeah, understood.
So
Makes sense. Yeah.
So this is about the control plane environment. And now let's dive right into the workload. This is where the magic happens, meaning this is where we connect start making all the connections that we see here. So this connection happens when you provide SAP credentials. Now we have connection between these two, like meaning that we have the function app and the SAP system within the same VNet. Now we created the subnet and created the Azure function app within that subnet, but they don't really know each other yet, right? So we have to make the function app aware that there is a SAP system within this VNet, and you have to start collecting the metrics from there. So this is what happens when we go to the function app here, and there is a function called as validator that you would see on the validation on the overview screen. Once you go there, you have to provide a set of SAP properties that I was just talking about. So this is the next step that the users do, like really add all the SAP related configuration. That's a SAP environment, like what kind of environment it is. For us, it is the QA, the SAP SID, the SAP hostname, username, password, and the print queues. Now, the print queues is essentially, what are the names of the print queue and what printer does it map to? So, for example, in an example that Martin talked about, you want to print out the shipping labels. Now, you can assign one print queue to print all the shipping labels, and then there's one printer against that print queue.
Yeah.
And then for different for different uses, you can have different queues, and those queues can map to different kinds of output devices that you have.
Right. And for
Right.
scalability, we chose to offer an API for this. Yeah. So all the things you saw, that this is about easily getting started, connecting both worlds, all data on the SAP side and Graph API for universal print. So everything that happens in between, all the things we just saw, are really about making that work. And the print queue mapping is the glue to this.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're fully flexible to configure it as you wish in order to load balance, so to say, right?
Yeah. So in the validator function, that essentially what it does, it validates that the connection properties that you provide are correct, and then stores those properties back into the key vault as we discussed earlier. So here we just provide the properties that we talked about, right? And once we do this, run, and then you will see the SAP connection has been validated. Right. Now what this has done is this has stored all the properties that I provided in the secrets, the keyword secrets. And now I would have the Azure function app constantly reaching out to this SAP system using these properties and reading the properties there, reading the print queues there, and then sending out those prints to the universal print thereafter.
Cool. And you saw username, password. It could also be X509. It could be OAuth, some Albira. Everything that OData supports could be used. But for simplicity, we looked at username, password here.
Right. Now we have made one connection. Like this check has been done. Even this check has been done. The only thing that we need to ensure is that we are also able to authenticate the Azure Function app to the universal print, right? To do this, we have the API connection, and this is really the authentication method that we use at this point, right? The API connection connects the function app to the essentially the logic app to the Azure functions, to the Azure Universal Print Service, and to authenticate yourself, what you have to do is just go to the Edit API connection, click on Authorize. Now here is where it would show you what you are really authorizing the API connection for. Once I select my account, it would list all the properties or all the permissions that you are giving this API connection on your to perform on your behalf. So it is reading basic information about print shares, creating print jobs, reading print shares, and then reading your profile. Right? And then once you hit accept and allow access and then save. Right? So now you have saved the authorization, meaning now we have also connected this start, connected the Azure Function app to the Universal Print. Now is when we will get into the like a quick demo of how the print would work. Since we are in a like we don't have a program that we can use, so I would just show you using like doing a kind of a combination of front-end printing. But what I would do is I would not send the print to the universal print directly. I would send this print to the like a queue, which we just added in the SAP configuration. So this is basically a SPO2 transaction, which records all the print devices, print jobs that are sent out. And I would just go ahead and print this itself. And the output device in my system is ZQ1, as we just added this. And then I would just send it immediately. I do have a printer right next to me, so we might see a print soon.
So this is an inception, yeah? So printing the
printing crew.
But
to basically what is happening now, you have this now in the SAP system, and you as you mentioned, the logic app with the authentication that we have done is now able to connect to the SAP system or polling the SAP system and gets the printing queue or the printing job in the end. And then we also have the connection from logic app to the universal printing, which is also authenticated. That was the second piece that you did when you clicked on allow or authorize. So it is then able to send the print job actually to universal printing, and then universal printing uses the agent, probably I guess in your case, to send the actual print job to the printer which is sitting next to you.
Yes, exactly. However, just one quick thing there. So it is the Azure Function app that continuously polls the print queues and keeps on reading the Azure, the SAP queues there. And then we currently use the logic app to establish the authentication method between the Azure Function app and the Universal Print. So yeah, so logic app in this case is just being used for the purpose of authentication.
Understood.
Right, and it is really the Azure Function app, the code that runs within this app that reads the print queues from the SAP system and manages the print items in the storage queues.
Okay, cool.
Right. Now, once the printout is out, I will share that, and it would also update the status here, right? So now you see it is completed, meaning I'll just grab the print out. Just give me 1 second. Okay.
So cool. So you really see here live the printout from an SAP system into Azure Cloud.
Right. So I don't know if you would see this, but it's a printout of the SPO2
Let-
transaction that we have pulled out. It's a colored print that I sent. So
maybe you need
can
to
you
put
see?
it more to yourself, to your
or
chest
to
or
yourself,
something.
yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
see
like
There you
this?
go.
this.
Yeah, we
Little bit
can
down.
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Nice.
sounds good. Yeah. So so this was like a quick demo of how this works. And now even the status that you see here shows as complete. As you know, in cloud, things may not work always as we want them to. So if the status, does not get updated here, we also maintain the status within the storage account table that we have here. This storage account would also have a table that has storage the print job status. If the status for some reason does not get updated on the SAP side, it may be due to some network connect issues or maybe authentication issues or anything of that sort. We also maintain the print item status within the storage account table as well.
Cool. So to troubleshoot or to see where
Yes.
where current issue is happening. Nice.
And there's also a column that talks about what is the exact error, and it would help you to understand where to look for in order to troubleshoot that. So I can show you the.
But it's fine, Devansh, I think. So Universal Print tracks everything that happens on the printers or on Graph API. This tracks on what's happening with the SAP connection, and then of course SAP knows about itself. Yeah?
Yes.
So
Yes.
all three parties get to see what's happening then. No?
Yes.
Cool.
All
No,
right.
this is
So this
really
is the print
fantastic.
job status, and you see the status here is completed. If at all there was a status as error, you would see the message as well.
Okay, then I could drill down and get more information, more insights on what went wrong.
Yes. Yes.
So basically, you could have a centralized cloud solution, or your clients and printer could be anywhere on the planet, so to say, easily connected and you always know what's going on, what is printed, what is not, and fully authenticated through the Microsoft Azure Entra ID. Nice, yeah.
Yeah, and just to really wrap up the session then, so we chose to have something community driven where everyone could get started themselves and make their own choices how to do this, because in the end you need to link two APIs, but of course there are also managed solutions for this. On the blog post we have 3 partners listed who offer this as part of their their packages and their RISE offerings, for instance. So we wanted to give options to the customer: do it yourself, have something that is more code related, or approach a partner who then deploys something for you on your behalf or brings ready packaged software.
I think this is perfect. And I mean, we saw right now how easy it is, but as Devansh was saying, if there are issues, that then maybe I want to have a partner that takes care of all of this. So I think it's pretty cool. And I think this is the first time, Goran, that we have something really in real life happening. Yeah, it's something physical, exactly, as a result of a blog post of our podcast. So
can you scroll down, Devansh, to the very end, so that we can show the free partnership?
Yes.
Yeah. So the from Blue Zone, there's one offering that's also available to other partners, and I've also worked with All for One on their RISE One offering with this, and everyone is using the same interfaces. You just get different flavors of it. And the colleagues from Kangolutions, they developed something on BTP using cloud integration. So today you saw functions and logic apps on the Azure platform, but you could also, of course, orchestrate those APIs with different means. And cloud integration is definitely a good fit for this as well.
Perfect. Cool. I think that's a nice wrap. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Devansh, for this great demo and really again seeing something live, something physical being printed out. That's fantastic. It's great to see how the SAP, the Azure services work together to then have a printout ready.
The function sent it to Norway, and Devansh then collected it and the West Coast.
Yeah, exactly. Global economy.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
Great. Then thank you so much. I hope to see you again sometimes in the future. Yeah. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much
Bye
for
bye.
having us. Bye.